Next up is news. And of course, the thing that we want to cover this time is Microsoft's COVID-19 response. I'm providing an overview of a number of the things they've done. It seems like every department in Microsoft is doing something, every product, every team, but here's just some highlights. Microsoft has released crisis communication templates, both for SharePoint Online and for Power apps, Power Platform, Power apps. They've also published a number of articles on Office patching for remote workers. This is on the Office 365 blog and tech community, and I can provide links to those articles. Essentially, since Office is updated monthly, whether you're on the monthly channel and getting new features every month, or semi-annually and getting security patches for it every month, you still want to be patching machines even if people are remote. So a lot of organizations use SCCM, which is System Center Configuration Manager, to manage that patching process, pushing out updates in a controlled way to end users' machines. And the latest article that I'm referencing here talks about how you can do that where you're not pushing the entire Office deployment package over your VPN connection, but rather just pushing the sort of instructions of go update to the end user's device over your VPN, but getting the actual update files from Microsoft's content distribution network. So if you're interested in that article is out there. They've also extended the deadlines for a number of certification exams and certification training voucher things. So if you go look at the Microsoft Learn site, there's information there. Microsoft's been publishing a lot of meeting and event guidance recently. They've offered the E1 Office 365 licenses for free for 6 months to enable organizations to more readily try out Teams, and offered other kinds of Teams trials as well. So they're really making sure that anyone can try Office 365 and use it to help remote work.
I'll mention one point about the Teams trials. Mm-hmm. As we were getting ready to begin the recording, there was some discussion about e-learning and how many of us have students at home that are working with various kinds of technology to do e-learning. There is a separate Teams trial that's targeted directly at educators. So if your school district or a teacher is looking for access to tools, have them search for Education Teams trial. They'll be able to find the link for that.
Thank you. Some of the guidance that Microsoft has been pushing on meetings. There's, again, numerous blog posts and documents they've published in the last week or two. And just a highlight of some of those is Teams meetings are designed for when you have 250 or less participants. These are collaboration meetings like we're doing now, where by default anyone can present, and then there are presenter and attendee roles that you can use. If you have larger meetings like a town hall all hands, that is best for live events. Live events can be used inside of Teams, inside of Yammer, or purely in Stream. So there's different use cases for those. So a live event within Teams is ideal for when you have internal and external attendees. Yammer is great for town halls and Ask Me Anythings, where you want that interactivity with a broad user base across your organization at a large-scale meeting. And Stream is great for internal training and recordings that you want to distribute broadly within your organization. I also mentioned a service I hadn't heard of before, which is LinkedIn Live, which is another kind of meeting that you can do, but integrates with LinkedIn. Not released yet, but coming soon. Based in PowerPoint, has automatic translations and also has a feedback loop mechanism. You can have a survey of the attendees. So that'll be, I think, very, very interesting when it arrives. There was one of the other blog posts was 9 tips for successful meetings. As I've seen more and more people use web meetings over the last 2 weeks or so, I think this number 3 one, stay in control of your meetings, is essential, and critical education that we as service owners, adoption managers need to make sure that is getting out to meeting organizers of how to control attendee activity in the meetings, essentially controlling who can present. Recently, I saw a meeting where and this is extremely common, where everyone had presenter rights, and so people were accidentally sharing their screens when it wasn't their time to. It was causing meeting disruption or disruption to the flow of the meeting. So getting people to understand roles and permissions is incredibly important. Another one is some meeting systems have entry tones or an entry tone option. If you're doing a large meeting, say with 1,000 participants, you don't want an entry tone for when each person comes and goes. I was attending a meeting of about 1,000 people, and it became the meeting of 1,000 beeps because there was an entry tone every time someone joined. And so the first 10 minutes of the meeting were just beep, 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 beep over what the presenter was trying to say. It was horrible. So make sure, again, your meeting organizers know how to control these things. Zoom is a competitor on the meeting level. My two kids are being invited to Zoom meetings for their academic needs, and even the FBI has some guidance on that. And this applies really not just to one brand of web meeting, but is applicable to all of them. Do not make meetings or classroom meetings public. Do not share a link to a telephone conference or classroom on public social media. Manage your screen sharing options. We just talked about that. And ensure users are using the latest version so that they have the most secure version. And ensure that there's a telework policy or guide so that end users have guidelines. And this was an FBI article based on people intruding into classroom meetings. But again, this can be applied more widely. Background blur and virtual backgrounds. So again, this is I've been working with 3 different meeting products recently, both Teams as well as WebEx, as well as Zoom. As you can see, Larry and I are using background blur. For example, if your kids are in a school meeting and have not cleaned up the room, you may want them to use a virtual background or background blur, depending on which tool they're using. And Teams, obviously, as you can see, has background blur, and custom backgrounds are coming. Microsoft employees already have them. Zoom has backgrounds but not blur. WebEx doesn't have either. And so if you're using a tool that doesn't do background blur or custom background, green screen, there are third-party applications that create essentially virtual cameras that do that. And then your meeting application just sees it as another camera. As well as a Microsoft MVP has a GitHub site where he's aggregating or collecting video chat backgrounds. So if you need backgrounds to use for custom backgrounds, there is a repository. And because it's on GitHub, if you have a great background you want to share, you can submit it as well. From home advice, and this is sort of aggregating a lot of the advice that you've seen on Twitter or in various social posts. Take some time every day to get some exercise. Make sure your work from home desk is ergonomic. Microsoft has published a remote work checklist, which you can see over here. Set up your workplace, communicate often, maintain boundaries, embrace online meetings, be mindful and inclusive, record your meetings, make up for missing hallway talk, bring the team together virtually, and have fun. And then here's some other resources. There's a way that's been published supporting remote workers with Teams and remote working communication assets. Microsoft has announced, as Jonathan mentioned, a renaming of things. They're changing the Office Pro Plus name, which was the name for the Office desktop applications, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, OneNote. These are now called, or will be now called, Microsoft 365 apps, as well as the Home Edition, which will also take on the Microsoft 365 name. Home Edition of Office will also start including Teams as well. And there's a more of a push for Teams in personal productivity scenarios and not just business anymore. Moving along to SharePoint Online, one of the big feature releases recently was for multilingual translation. It's no longer a model of subsites that are in different languages, but workflows around individual pages to facilitate translation. Larry, do you want to add anything to either of these?
No, I think you covered it well. The Microsoft 365 apps renaming, that's going to be effective on April 21st, as I understand it. So you'll start seeing the new branding showing up pretty shortly.
The reasoning behind that was to help get across the idea that Office is so much more than Office, which is it's no longer just the desktop apps, but it's the applications and services and the web-based apps such as Planner that are part of Office, but not often thought of as an extension of the desktop suite.
Yeah, so that's a good point. Your comment there reminds me of something to mention, is that on the consumer side, Microsoft Family Safety. So that's a way that you can, as a parent, you can control what screen time your kids are spending. You can control which apps they have access to and monitor their online activities. So, and then on the commercial side or the enterprise side, the subscription includes other security tools like the Windows Defender and things of that nature that are subscription services that are kept up to date. So it is broader than just the components of the Office suite.
Thank you.
Our Microsoft stores are investing in offering customer success training. Now that this is, I imagine, shifted to a remote-only kind of delivery.
You are correct. We have moved our store trainings to a remote model, some of which is focused around specific solution products. So the ones that you see there, all listed out. And then some of which is focused around remote worker generalized training. So for folks who are not used to work from home and are not used to remote work, or for organizations where this is all very new, we have some offerings and some solutions that we can talk about in terms of, here's setting you up for success. These do get booked up pretty quick, but they are available and they're part of what you already own. So do take advantage.
Great.
Are there any questions about it? I can answer a few. I know it's kind of a high level there.
With this training, are there specific classes or sessions just on OneNote or just on SharePoint and OneDrive? Can you pick and choose the topics, or is it sort of an overview of all of them?
Yeah, you can pick and choose. The way these typically run is you'll register and you'll request these are the things we'd like to learn. Teams out, this for these users, and they'll start with some scoping to understand what it is you're looking for, who are the users, and what are any specific details, such as, for example, a classic one is we'd like to train users on Teams, but we are not using calling. We're not using that. We still have a VIA or something like that. They say, okay, we'll leave that piece out, and then they have sort of motions around that. But you can sort of pick from the menu.
Great, thank you. Okay. So that concludes the news roundup. Let's talk through some upcoming events. Technical Operations User Group at Harper, run by our friend MVP Ed Gallagher. If you're interested in that, the URL is there. Microsoft Midwest Toastmasters is doing virtual meetings as well. Ignite the tour has been canceled. Chicago was a tour stop scheduled for later this month, 15th and 16th. That has been canceled. SharePoint North America and the corresponding virtual summit, which would have been the broadcast of the keynote. SharePoint North America has been moved from May of this year now to March of next year.
And coincidentally, that new March date coincides with the 20th anniversary of SharePoint.
Oh, wow. Now I feel old.
Yes, don't we all?
The Advanced Learning Institute was planning to do a 3-day conference here for internal communications with Office 365. That has been virtualized. It is now a 1 afternoon event, May 7th, entirely online, and that is 11 to 3 Central Time. The Digital Workplace Experience Conference has not been virtualized yet. So they are watching carefully to see how things evolve. At the moment, it is still an in-person conference. Hopefully, things will turn out where they can actually hold that. Otherwise, I'm sure they'll come up with a virtual option as well. Microsoft Ignite in September has been virtualized. This was announced recently. Obviously, September is farther out, but with an abundance of caution, Microsoft has decided to deliver a digital experience for Ignite this year, and we'll be excited to see how that works. Hopefully by December, we'll be done with COVID and we can all meet in person. Another meeting best practice is when the meeting's over, end it.
I like
There you
that.
go, Michael. I think
That's
this
the
is
quote of the day.
yeah.